The laughter echoed across the training grounds of Fort Braxton Special Operations Center as Rodriguez jabbed his finger directly at the woman's exposed forearm. "Hey, check this out." His voice rang with mocking delight. "She's got numbers tattooed like a barcode on groceries." He leaned closer, his 6'4" frame looming over her more diminutive figure. Before continuing this story, please comment below with your city or country where you're watching us from. Your feedback inspires us to do better. What is that? Your Starbucks loyalty code? The group of Ranger trainees erupted in laughter. One of them pulled out his phone, pretending to scan her arm like a product at checkout. "Beep, sorry ma'am. This item appears to be defective." Maya Chen stood perfectly still, her face betraying no emotion as Rodriguez continued his performance. There was no anger in her eyes, no shame. Only the cold composure of someone who had seen things far worse than schoolyard bullying from grown men. Seriously, who the hell tattoos random numbers on their arm? Rodriguez turned to his audience, gesticulating theatrically. Trying to look tough with some prison number? Or maybe it's your rejection code from the last time you decided to play soldier. The North Carolina sun blazed down on the training facility at Fort Braxton, where 24 elite warriors surrounded one woman. None of them understood what those numbers meant. None of them knew that in exactly 20 minutes, everything about this morning would change forever. But let's pause for a moment. Have you ever witnessed someone being completely misjudged based on appearances? Maybe watch someone get written off as weak, only to discover they were the strongest person in the room. Those moments reveal people's true nature and the cost of hasty assumptions. Maya continued checking her gear with methodical precision. Every movement economical and purposeful. She ran her hands over the obstacle course equipment, testing weight distribution points that most trainees didn't even notice. Rodriguez, the embodiment of arrogance in military fatigues, blocked her path to the starting line. His buddies flanked him like a pack of predators who'd caught scent of prey. "First day trying to run with the big boys?" Rodriguez's voice carried across the entire training area, ensuring maximum audience. "Let me guess. Some women's empowerment program told you that you could be anything, so you decided to try being a ranger." His group's laughter encouraged him to continue. "That's cute, really. But this isn't yoga class, sweetheart. This is where we make rangers." Master Sergeant Williams watched from his position at the timing station, his weathered face expressionless. The senior instructor had seen thousands of trainees pass through these gates and knew the unwritten rule. Let them sort out the hierarchy themselves. But something about the way this woman moved caught his attention. There was a fluidity in her movements that didn't match the nervous energy of a typical rookie. Maya glanced at her watch, an old G-Shock with 3 distinctive parallel scratches across the face. She noted the time, 07:45 hours, then resumed her preparation. When she examined her rifle, she didn't follow the standard operating procedure drilled into every trainee. Instead, her hands moved in a different algorithm, checking failure points that weren't in any manual. "Earth to barcode, girl," Rodriguez snapped his fingers in front of her face. "I'm talking to you. Maybe those numbers scrambled your brain?" He turned to his audience, gesturing dramatically. "Actually, what kind of person tattoos random digits on their arm? Let me guess. Ex-boyfriend's social security number? Or wait, maybe it's how many times you've failed basic training." One of the junior trainees trying to impress the group added, "Maybe it's her kill count? You know, how many participation trophies she's collected?" The group howled with laughter. Maya finally looked up, meeting Rodriguez's eyes. Her gaze was steady, almost unnervingly calm. "Are we running the course or talking about it?" Her voice was quiet but carried an undertone that made several trainees shift uncomfortably. "Oh, she speaks." Rodriguez threw his hands up in mock surprise. "And with such authority. Tell you what, princess. Ladies first on the obstacle course. Show us what they taught you in CrossFit." He made an exaggerated bow, gesturing toward the starting line. "I'll wait my turn," Maya replied, returning to her gear check. Rodriguez's face darkened at the dismissal. In his world, backing down from a challenge was weakness. And this woman had just confirmed every prejudice he held. "Of course you'll wait. Probably need time to practice your Instagram poses before you fail at the first obstacle." Master Sergeant Williams noticed what others missed. how Maya distributed her weight when standing, keeping her center of gravity low and balanced. It was subtle, the kind of thing that took years to develop into muscle memory. He'd seen that stance before, but not in ranger training. This was something else entirely. Maya adjusted the specialized tactical watch on her wrist. Its military construction included encrypted GPS capabilities, originally developed for deep cover operations but now standard equipment for Tier 1 units. The watch's unique biometric sensors continuously monitored vital signs, technology worth more than most cars, but invaluable when operating in denied territories. "Nice watch," one of the trainees commented. "Buy that at the military surplus store along with the rest of your tough girl starter kit?" Rodriguez seized on this new angle of attack. "That's what this is. Some stolen valor fantasy. Watched a few documentaries about Rangers, bought some gear online, got some random numbers tattooed, and thought she could just walk in and play warrior." His voice took on a harder edge. "You know what? I'm actually doing you a favor. Better to quit now than embarrass yourself on the course." The obstacle course at Fort Braxton was legendary. A brutal combination of walls, ropes, barbed wire, and water obstacles that broke even the strongest candidates. The current record stood at 4 minutes 39 seconds, set 8 years ago by a ranger who later earned the Medal of Honor in Afghanistan. "Time to put up or shut up," Rodriguez announced as the group moved toward the course. "I'll even make this interesting. I'll run first, show you how it's done, then you can try if you're still here." He stripped off his shirt, displaying the physique of someone who lived in the gym. "Try to keep up, Barcode. Maybe you'll learn something about what real operators look like." Maya remained silent, but observant eyes would have noticed her gaze tracking along the course with analytical precision. She wasn't looking at it like a challenge to overcome. She was looking at it like a problem to solve. Rodriguez exploded from the starting line with the confidence of someone who'd run this course dozens of times. His form was textbook ranger preparation. Powerful, aggressive, straightforward. He attacked each obstacle head-on, using brute strength and determination to power through. His buddies cheered and called out times as he progressed. "That's how it's done," someone shouted as Rodriguez cleared the cargo net in record time. "Show her what real training looks like." Master Sergeant Williams kept his eyes on Maya. She hadn't moved, but her entire demeanor had completely changed. The casual relaxation was gone, replaced by something he'd seen before in operators preparing for a mission. She was visualizing, running the course in her mind, finding the optimal path. Rodriguez finished with a flourish, breathing hard, sweat streaming down his face. 4 minutes 32 seconds. A personal best that put him within striking distance of the course record. He stood at the finish line with arms spread, accepting congratulations from his teammates. 4:32, he called toward Maya. 7 seconds off the record. That's what years of real training look like. Still want to embarrass yourself? Or ready to admit you don't belong here? Maya approached the starting line without a word. The sudden quiet was deafening as everyone realized she was actually going to try. Even those who hadn't participated in the harassment found themselves intrigued by what would happen next. "This should be interesting," Rodriguez muttered, pulling out his phone. "Anyone want to bet on how long before she quits?" $20 says she doesn't make it past the first wall. Master Sergeant Williams raised his hand. "Standards are standards. Everyone runs." He looked at Maya. "On the line?" Maya rolled her shoulders once, then took a stance subtly different from what they taught in Ranger School. Her weight was distributed differently. Her breathing shifted to a rhythm Williams couldn't quite identify. When she exploded forward, it wasn't with the aggressive power Rodriguez had displayed. Instead, she moved like water, finding the path of least resistance. At the first wall, Rodriguez had applied brute upper body strength. Maya approached it at an angle, using momentum and foot placement to flow up and over with minimal effort. The movement was so smooth that several trainees exchanged confused glances. "Lucky start," Rodriguez said, but uncertainty crept into his voice. Maya approached the rope climb differently, too. Instead of the standard ranger technique, she used a method that conserved energy, wrapping the rope around her leg in a pattern that provided maximum friction with minimum effort. She ascended faster than seemed possible for her size. "What the hell?" one of the trainees whispered. "That's not in any manual." The cargo net was where Rodriguez expected her to fail. The heavy rope squares required significant upper body strength to navigate quickly, but Maya read the net like a map, finding points where the rope was taut, using the physics of the structure against itself. She cleared it in half Rodriguez's time. By the time she reached the water obstacle, the entire group had fallen silent. This wasn't luck or beginner's enthusiasm. Every movement was calculated, efficient, purposeful. She was moving through the course like someone who had spent years perfecting the art of movement under pressure. Master Sergeant Williams glanced at his stopwatch and felt his pulse quicken. She was running at a pace that could produce something extraordinary. Maya approached the final obstacle, a 20-foot rope climb straight up, without any signs of fatigue. But it was here that her unconventional technique became most apparent. She didn't climb it. She flowed up it, using a combination of leg clamps and torso rotations that created upward movement with minimal arm involvement. She touched the bell at the top and descended even faster, landing on bent knees that perfectly absorbed the impact. The stopwatch stopped at 3 minutes 47 seconds. The silence that followed was deafening. Maya had just obliterated the course record by 52 seconds, making Rodriguez's impressive time look mediocre by comparison. But more than that, she'd done it using techniques none of them had seen before. That's impossible," Rodriguez stammered. "She must have. This can't be right." He looked around for support, but even his loyal followers were staring at Maya with newfound respect. She cheated. Had to. Nobody can be that fast on their first try. Master Sergeant Williams stepped forward, his expression unreadable. Time stands as recorded. 3:47. He looked at Rodriguez. "Unless you have specific evidence of cheating, we move to weapons qualification." Rodriguez's face reddened with anger. She probably ran this course before, trained on it for months. Can't be that she just... "Rodriguez," Williams' voice cut through the protest like a blade. "You're embarrassing yourself. Take position at the firing range." As the group moved toward the weapons qualification area, Maya noticed several trainees throwing curious glances her way. One of them, brave enough to walk beside her, quietly asked, "Where'd you learn to move like that?" "Check your 6, Maya replied automatically, passing a corner, using terminology that made the trainee frown. "Check your 6? That's not Army terminology. That's ... But Maya had already moved ahead, leaving the question hanging in the air. Walking, her training shirt shifted, revealing a glimpse of a scar on her shoulder. It wasn't jagged like shrapnel or a bullet wound. It was precise, surgical, the kind of scar left by very specific medical procedures. Rodriguez had recovered his wounded ego by the time they reached the firing range. "Okay, so she can run an obstacle course. Big deal. Any CrossFit fanatic can learn to climb ropes. Let's see how she handles real weapons." That's where real operators separate from pretenders. The firing range at Fort Braxton was a standard 50-meter setup with steel targets for basic qualification. Each shooter fired 10 rounds at their target, with grouping and accuracy determining their score. Rodriguez made sure to select the lane directly next to Maya. His intentions were clear. "You ever held a real weapon before, Barcode?" he asked while preparing the rifles. "This isn't a video game. This is an M4 carbine, standard weapon for real warriors. The recoil might be a bit much for your size." Maya began her weapon inspection with movements fluid as water. Her hands found every critical point without conscious thought. Bolt carrier group, trigger mechanism, barrel alignment. But again, her sequence was different. She was checking things in an order not taught in any basic training facility. That's when Major Harrison arrived. A former Delta operator now serving as range master, his appearance usually meant someone important was visiting. But today, he was here for a different reason. Williams had sent him a message. Just 3 words. "Come see this." Harrison took position behind the firing line, his experienced eyes immediately focusing on Maya. He watched her preparation procedure with growing interest. How she adjusted the sling, the angle of her support arm, the micro adjustments to her shooting position, none of this was standard ranger training. During weapon preparation, Maya retrieved advanced ballistic computation equipment, including a military rangefinder with atmospheric sensors designed for extreme long-range shots. The specialized shooting gloves she put on included pressure-sensitive material originally developed for combat surgeons, allowing precise trigger control even in adverse conditions. Fancy gear won't help if you can't shoot straight, Rodriguez commented loud enough for everyone to hear. This isn't Instagram, princess. Here you actually have to hit what you're aiming at. Maya finished her preparation and settled into her shooting position. Rodriguez, still trying to establish dominance, accidentally knocked over a box of ammunition, spilling it across Maya's area. Oops. Sorry about that, he said with false sincerity. Here, let me help you clean that up. Wouldn't want you to get your hands dirty. As he bent down, he deliberately bumped Maya's rifle, trying to disrupt her setup. But Maya's hand shot out, stabilizing the weapon with reflexes that spoke of years of muscle memory. In one smooth motion, she collected the scattered rounds, loaded her magazine, and returned to her shooting position. Range is hot, the safety officer announced. Shooters may commence firing at will. Rodriguez immediately opened fire, his shots ringing out in rapid succession. His grouping was respectable. All 10 shots within a 6-inch circle. He looked at Maya with a smirk, expecting to see her struggling with the weapon's recoil. But Maya hadn't fired yet. She was breathing steadily, her body perfectly still except for microscopic adjustments she made, tracking some invisible wind pattern. Harrison leaned forward, recognizing something in her stance that he'd only seen in a handful of elite shooters. When Maya finally squeezed the trigger, the shot broke so cleanly that the rifle barely moved. She worked the bolt economically, chambering the next round without disturbing her sight picture. The second shot followed, then the third, each flowing into the next like a perfectly choreographed dance. Rodriguez's smirk faded as he watched the impacts through his spotting scope. Maya's shots weren't just hitting the target. They were hitting the same hole. By the 5th shot, it was clear something extraordinary was happening. By the 10th, a quiet crowd had gathered. "Check target 2, Harrison ordered, his voice betraying amazement. The range officer examined Maya's target and called back. 10 shots, 1 ragged hole. Size, holy hell, 7/10 of an inch at 50 meters. The silence was deafening. That kind of accuracy was beyond elite. It was almost supernatural. Rodriguez's jaw hung open as he stared at the target, then at Maya, then back at the target. That's impossible, he stammered. She must be using match-grade ammunition. Can't be doing that with standard issue. Harrison stepped forward and picked up one of Maya's spent casings. Standard M855 ball ammunition, he announced. Same as everyone else. He looked at Maya with an expression mixing recognition with disbelief. Ma'am, shooting like that? Where exactly did you train? Maya was already putting her weapon on safe, her movements automatic and precise. Here and there, she replied quietly. But Harrison wasn't looking at her face anymore. His eyes had locked onto the tattoo on her forearm, those numbers everyone had been mocking. His face went pale, and he involuntarily took a step back. Hold on, he said to the range officer, then pulled out his phone and stepped away from the group. His voice was quiet, urgent, but several words carried on the wind. Need confirmation. Those numbers. Impossible. Thought they were all KIA. Rodriguez, desperately trying to salvage his crumbling superiority, announced loudly, anyone can get lucky once. Let's see if she can repeat it. Better yet, let's move to combat drills. That's where real operators prove themselves. But the bravado in his voice fooled no one. Something fundamental had shifted on that firing range. The woman they'd been mocking for her barcode tattoo had just demonstrated a level of marksmanship most of them would never achieve in their entire careers. As Maya rose from her shooting position, her sleeve rode up slightly, revealing more of the tattoo. The numbers were now clear. 88-27364. To most, they still looked random, but Harrison had made his phone call, and wheels were already in motion. The final test was close-quarters combat, the kill house. Rodriguez gathered his remaining supporters, moving toward the structure. A maze of rooms designed to simulate urban combat scenarios. His former confidence was cracked, but he wasn't ready to admit defeat. CQB is where it all comes together, he announced loud enough for everyone to hear. Speed, violence of action, teamwork. This isn't about fancy shooting or parkour tricks. This is about warrior mindset. He looked directly at Maya. Since you're so experienced, let's make this interesting. You can clear the house solo while my team does it the right way. See how your mysterious training handles real combat simulation. Master Sergeant Williams started to object, but Maya spoke first. Time limit? Rodriguez's eyes lit up, thinking he'd found her weakness. Standard clearing time for a 5-man team is 2 minutes. Solo? Most instructors can't do it in under 4, but hey, take all the time you need. Maya checked her weapon and spare magazines with the same fluid efficiency she'd displayed all morning. Start the clock when I go in. The Kill House at Fort Braxton was an infamous test. 23 rooms across 2 floors with pop-up targets representing threats and civilians. Every corner had to be cleared, every angle checked. 1 missed threat meant failure. 1 civilian casualty. Automatic disqualification. Rodriguez positioned himself at an observation window with a clear view of several rooms. This should be educational. Watch and learn how quickly she falls apart when the timer starts. Maya approached the entry point like a ghost taking form. The door exploded inward, and she flowed through the fatal funnel at a speed that defied physics. Her weapon tracked threats before they fully appeared, bullets finding center mass with mechanical precision. Jesus Christ, someone whispered. She's not clearing rooms, she's dancing through them. Maya moved unlike anything they'd seen in training videos or real operations. She used angles that shouldn't exist, positions the textbook called impossible. Her footwork created geometries that gave her split-second advantages, turning corners with her weapon already aligned on threats that hadn't even registered to observers. Room after room fell to her systematic approach, but this wasn't Ranger methodology, not Delta Doctrine or Special Forces training. This was something else entirely, something honed in places that didn't exist on any map. Harrison returned from his phone call and now stood frozen at the observation window. This is impossible, he muttered. That technique, I saw it once in Syria, but the unit that used it was 47 seconds. Maya had cleared 3/4 of the house in 47 seconds. Targets were falling so fast the computer system could barely keep track. Not 1 civilian casualty, not 1 missed threat. Perfect violence executed with surgical precision. The final room approached, traditionally the most difficult, with multiple angles and intersecting fields of fire. Maya paused for a split second at the door, and in that moment, everyone saw her lips move. She was counting down from 3. She burst in on 0, and what happened next would be debated in instructor circles for years. Maya engaged 5 targets in under 2 seconds, her body contorting into positions that seemed to defy human anatomy. The final shot came while sliding across the floor, firing upside down at a target everyone else had missed, a partially concealed threat in the ceiling corner. Time: 1 minute 12 seconds. The silence that followed was absolute. Maya stood in the center of the final room, weapon at ready, breathing as steadily as if she'd just finished a light jog. Around her, the complex target system confirmed what everyone had witnessed. A perfect run at impossible speed. That's when they heard the helicopters. 2 Blackhawks appeared on the horizon, approaching fast and low. These weren't training aircraft. They carried the distinctive modifications of operational airframes. All personnel, stand fast. Master Sergeant Williams' voice carried across the training ground. Do not approach the aircraft. But Maya was already safing her weapon and walking toward the lead helicopter with the casual confidence of someone who'd done this thousands of times. The side door slid back, and out stepped Commander Jake Mitchell, commanding officer of the 5th Special Forces Group. Behind him came 3 more officers, their uniforms heavy with ribbons telling stories of operations in places most people couldn't pronounce. Mitchell's eyes immediately locked onto Maya. More specifically, they locked onto her exposed tattoo. His face cycled through expressions: confusion, recognition, Then something that looked almost like reverence. Attention. The command rang across the training ground. Every trainee snapped to attention, including Rodriguez, whose legs seemed barely able to support him. Mitchell walked directly to Maya, ignoring everyone else. When he stopped in front of her, the silence was so complete you could hear the helicopter's engines ticking as they cooled. Then, in a move that violated every protocol, every tradition, every understanding of military hierarchy, Commander Jake Mitchell raised his hand in salute. "Ma'am," he said, his voice clearly carrying across the field. The collective gasp from 24 Rangers sounded like a small hurricane. The commander was saluting the woman they'd been mocking all morning. Rodriguez's knees actually buckled. Maya returned a crisp salute. "Commander?" "Unit 88, Mitchell said, his voice filled with something between reverence and disbelief. "I thought you were all KIA. The report said the entire unit was lost in Mosul." "Reports were necessary," Maya replied simply. Harrison stepped forward, finally understanding what he'd witnessed. "Unit 88? That's impossible. That unit was—" He stopped, unable to finish the classified thought in front of trainees. Mitchell turned to the confused crowd. "What you're looking at, gentlemen, is a ghost." Unit 88 was a classified combat unit so secret that most people with top-secret clearance don't know it existed. All female operators, selected from across all branches, trained for missions conventional forces couldn't accomplish. Rodriguez found his voice, though it came out barely above a whisper. "All female," the tattoo dot Mitchell continued, pointing to Maya's arm. "Those aren't random numbers. That's a designation code. 88 for the unit, 273 for operator number, 64 for year of commissioning." He looked back at Maya. "Your ghost. 273. You wrote the urban warfare manual we use. You developed the close quarters techniques we teach our most advanced operators." "That's impossible," Rodriguez said weakly. She's just... Just what?" Maya asked, addressing him directly for the first time since the morning began. "Just a woman with a tattoo you didn't understand?" Harrison produced a sealed folder he'd retrieved during his phone call. "Ma'am, your actual records. I had to call in favors just to get confirmation you existed." He briefly opened it, showing glimpses of operations in places where there should have been no American presence. 139 confirmed operations, 4 Medal of Honor. Nominations, all classified. The Mosul operation alone. "Enough," Maya said quietly. "They don't need those details." Mitchell shook his head in amazement. "When the unit was supposedly destroyed, we lost capabilities we've never been able to replace. The Pentagon spent 3 years trying to recreate what you all could do. We failed every time." He paused. "Why are you here?" "Why now?" "I'm here for instructor evaluation," Maya said. "Standard process, same as everyone else." "Standard?" Mitchell almost laughed. "Ma'am, you wrote half the procedures we use. You established protocols that have saved hundreds of lives. Nothing about this is standard." Rodriguez slowly approached, his face a mixture of shame and awe. When he spoke, his voice trembled. I mocked you. I said you were playing soldier. He couldn't finish. Maya looked at him with surprising compassion. "You saw what you expected to see. That was the point." She addressed the group. Unit 88 was built on the premise that enemy assumptions could be weaponized. They see a woman and assume weakness. They see smaller stature and assume incapability. Those assumptions killed them every time. "The Mosul compound," Mitchell said. "Intelligence failure. We thought you were all killed in the explosion." 4 died, Maya said quietly, and for the first time emotion flickered across her face. She touched the G-Shock with 3 parallel scratches. "Johnson, Lee, and Martinez. The rest of us got out." But the political situation, it was decided that Unit 88 would remain KIA. Easier than explaining how a unit that didn't exist got compromised by intelligence leaks. Williams finally spoke. "You've been active all this time?" "Retired," Maya corrected. "Officially dead, living quiet lives with our memories and scars." She looked at her tattoo. But skills like ours, they don't let you truly rest. So when the opportunity came to pass on what we learned, maybe prevent other units from walking into the same traps. You came to teach, Harrison finished. Maya nodded. If you'll have me. The next hour passed in a blur. Rodriguez publicly apologized, his voice breaking as he realized how badly he'd misjudged the situation. Other trainees approached with a mixture of respect and embarrassment, asking questions about techniques they'd witnessed. Maya answered some, deflected others, always maintaining the operational security that had kept her and her unit alive. When the sun reached its zenith, Mitchell made the formal offer. The Army would be honored if you'd accept a position as Advanced Tactics Instructor. Full clearance restoration, your choice of assignments. I'll teach, Maya said, but on my terms. No special treatment, no pedestals. I'm here to ensure the next generation doesn't pay the price we paid. That evening, the base auditorium filled with curious personnel as word of the morning's events spread. Maya stood at the front, no longer hiding, no longer pretending to be less than she was. She spoke about the concept of Unit 88, how underestimation had been their greatest weapon, how they'd turned societal prejudices into tactical advantages. Every assumption an enemy makes is an opportunity, she explained. They saw women and thought weak. We saw women and thought invisible. They saw smaller stature and thought incapable. We saw it and thought capable of moving through spaces they couldn't. Your greatest perceived weakness can become your defining strength. Rodriguez sat in the front row, absorbing every word. His transformation from tormentor to student was complete. When Maya finished, he was first to stand and applaud. As the crowd dispersed, Maya found herself alone with Mitchell and the command staff. They discussed details, the curriculum she'd develop, techniques she'd introduce, the delicate balance between sharing knowledge and protecting classified methods. There's one thing I need to know, Mitchell said, concluding. The others from Unit 88, are they alive? Maya confirmed. Living their quiet lives, maybe ready to stop being ghosts. She smiled slightly. The world has changed since Mosul. Maybe it's time for the dead to teach the living. Later that evening, Mitchell made an announcement to the packed auditorium. Effective immediately, Maya Chen will serve as lead instructor for Special Operations Selection courses, specializing in advanced urban operations and unconventional warfare tactics. The room erupted in applause. Rodriguez stood in the front row, leading the ovation. His transformation from tormentor to supporter was complete. He'd spent the day telling everyone who'd listen about the morning's lessons, about assumptions and humility, and the cost of prejudice. As personnel filed out, Maya found herself helping a junior trainee who was struggling with the footwork in close-quarters combat she'd demonstrated. She guided his movements with patient corrections, never raising her voice, never showing irritation. Respect is earned in silence and perfected in action, she told him when his technique finally clicked. Remember that. The next morning came clear and fresh. Maya stood at the base entrance checking her G-Shock one last time. Her fingers traced the 3 parallel scratches on the face. Johnson, Lee, and Martinez. Their sacrifice now had meaning, passed down in every lesson she would teach. Rodriguez approached with 5 other trainees. Without a word, they formed a line and rendered perfect salutes as Maya passed. She nodded once in acknowledgement but didn't stop. The gesture said everything. Respect earned, lessons learned, traditions changed. As she reached the parking area, the rising sun caught her tattoo, making the numbers seem to glow. 88-273-64. No longer a barcode for mockery, but a symbol of sacrifice and service that few would ever fully understand. Behind her, someone asked Rodriguez what he'd learned. That there are 9 more out there just like her, he said quietly. Makes you wonder who else we walk past every day without knowing who they really are. Maya smiled and drove away as morning PT began. In her rearview mirror, the training grounds shrank, but the lessons she'd planted would grow. Tomorrow she would formally teach the next generation. Today had been about teaching them to see. Her tattoo caught the sunlight on the steering wheel, numbers telling a story of service and sacrifice. Somewhere, 9 other women carried similar marks. The legend of Unit 88 would live on in the whispers of trainees who learned the hardest lesson. The most dangerous warriors don't always look the part. Sometimes a simple tattoo can change everything. And in the skies above Fort Braxton, 2 Blackhawks flew back home, carrying word that one of the deadliest operatives in American Special Operations history was no longer a ghost. She had become a teacher. And perhaps that was her most important mission of all. In a world full of prejudices and snap judgments, Maya Chen had proven a truth every person should remember. True strength often hides in the most unexpected packages. Her barcode had become a symbol that the most formidable warriors can look like anyone, but their actions speak louder than any words. Maya's story became Fort Braxton legend, a reminder that in an age of social media and performative strength, real heroes often hide in plain sight, waiting for the moment when they need to show the world who they really are. And when that moment comes, it changes everything.